Hey everyone, I am Jennifer Wolfe with the Evansville Holistic Expo, and we are here with Dr. Mandy Patterson. She is a generous sponsor this year for our expo. Hey Mandy, how are you?
Hey, Jennifer, I'm great. How are you?
Good. We both wore green today. We're very aligned.
We did. We did. I just got back from Ireland. So, it's funny, like people associate green with Ireland, but they're actually like green really isn't our color, it's blue. So it's kind of funny when I
What?
was over there. Yes.
I did not know that. I always associate it with with Ireland too.
Too, I guess like leprechauns and all those things. But yeah. So,
Well, okay, so on your website and on the phone the other day, you mentioned that you used to be an occupational therapist,
yes.
but
Yeah.
certain life circumstances took you in a new direction. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired you to pursue this work and the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, years ago, so my oldest is now 24, which is crazy to say. I have a kid that is that old. But I actually am born and raised in Evansville, grew up here, and went off to school to pursue a bachelor's degree in occupational therapy. I went to St. Louis University. My husband now actually was my next door neighbor, and we were dating during that time. And he ended up proposing to me, and we got married when I was going into my junior year over at SLU. And so he worked for a local family business here, and that's kind of how that came to be. But we ended up moving back to Evansville. And when I was 28 weeks pregnant, I was on my clinicals at the Easter Seals Evansville Rehabilitation Center and got very sick. I was only like 2 weeks into my clinicals and developed severe preeclampsia. And so, for the listeners, that's pregnancy induced hypertension. And I actually went into kidney and liver failure. So back then, when I walked into women's in the ER, they basically told me to get my things in order. They didn't think I was going to survive. And, really just said, that's where we're at. So very shocking as a like new mom to be having to go through that. And so, by the grace of God, I'm a very strong believer. As a Christian, I did make it through. I was in a drug-induced coma for a while. And my son ended up being born. He weighed 1 pound and 14 ounces. And so he ended up being in the NICU. It was about 5 months. But he was at Women's for 2 weeks, but started having really significant complications with infections and gut issues. And so we moved him to Riley in Indianapolis. So quite a journey there, lots of setbacks. And challenges along the way. So he was born January 13th of '02, and we ended up bringing him home at the beginning of May in that year. So had journeyed through all of that, and I took a little time off. I actually was supposed to be doing my clinicals, finishing my clinicals at the Evansville Rehab Center, and then also Deaconess Hospital. But because of all of that, it got changed, right? And I had to take time off to take care of his medical needs and all of those things. But I did go back and finish my senior year in my clinicals. And obviously, like going through that experience really shaped who I was becoming as a medical professional. And so after I finished my clinicals, I ended up hiring on at Deaconess. And then also select specialty here locally in Evansville. And I actually worked for both of them for many, many years. Actually, upwards of 20 plus years. I worked in both of those spaces. So worked all sectors of healthcare at Deaconess. I did all the ICUs, trauma, orthopedic, cardiovascular. I actually worked out at Deaconess Women's for a period and did NICU, did outpatient rehab. And then along the way, I also did some home health. And so really saw like all areas of healthcare and worked in those. And while we were going through that, kind of going back to the beginning of my story, I was basically told after Bailey was born, I probably wouldn't have any more children. That basically, because of my genetics and because of how sick I got, that most women that have a situation like mine never go on to have more children, or they have multiple miscarriages. And in my heart, I always loved kids and I wanted more kids. And so I really kind of started researching at that point and digging in and like starting to look at holistic and like really getting a firm understanding of the timeline of events that actually led up to me being so sick. So, so I actually ended up getting pregnant with my second one within 2 years of Bailey being born. And so that was quite a shock. We weren't prepared for that because we didn't think, that was even an option at that point. But I did go on to have four more healthy pregnancies even after her. So I have six kids. They are all biological. There's no twins in there. I'm no longer Catholic. I grew up Catholic until I was in fourth grade. So I get lots of questions on that. But, my oldest continued to have a lot of health issues because of his early prematurity, and he had had two bowel surgeries. And so I really just stayed committed to really learning and understanding what was going on at a root cause level. And so I went on and I finished a master's degree in neuro at University of Indianapolis, and it was a focus in neuro and like autism and ADHD, and then pursued a naturopathic doctorate and two board certifications in functional medicine. And I've actually really mentored with a lot of giants or gurus in the functional space. So Dr. Aviva Ram is one of them. She's a physician and herbalist. I've mentored with Dr. Dan Kalish over a year. He's a chiropractor out in California that's been doing functional medicine for over 40 years. Um, so lots of people like I've spent, and I've done advanced training in infertility as well, because that's really near and dear to my heart. After going through what I went through, and also had family and very close friends that went through that as well. So yeah, so that's kind of my story. And that really, I continue to work in healthcare along the way, along with doing the consulting that I did. So I started doing consulting in like 2012. And then our family moved overseas to Brisbane, Australia, at the end of 2017. And that's when I went online for people to continue to find me. And we came back in 2020 at kind of the start of the pandemic, which was great because a lot of people already knew I was online and were able to find me that way. So, yeah, that's kind of the story over a long time frame.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I love that it's like it was inspired from something in your heart. So it's like it's a passion. It's like it's an actual like deep passion for you because you want to help people who have now you've walked through the fire and you want to help other people walk through that fire as well. I really,
Yes.
yeah. You say your work is rooted in science and shaped by faith. I really
Yeah.
like that. Can you share what that means to you?
Yeah, for sure. So, as a Christian, I've been a Christian since like I believe like it was when I was 14 was when I was baptized. I actually grew up Catholic until I was in fourth grade, and then my parents converted over to evangelical Christianity. And so much of my life I grew up at Christian Fellowship Church in Evansville, and also did other things with other churches. I did mission work overseas and abroad, and also, just was really vested in the community and like with youth and all of that. And so that really was the foundation that set me up as a young adult. And really was like the compass for everything in my life. And so obviously, being 22 years old and kind of being head or handed that sentence of, we don't know if you're going to live, or, if you do, like, you probably won't be able to have more children, all of those things, I went back to my faith because I feel like the medical system, many physicians and healthcare providers go into it to help people. But ultimately, I do believe that God is our ultimate healer. And so that really framed my journey into motherhood and beyond, and also as a healthcare professional. Because, there's many years and many times I would have to sit by people that were dying, and I would have to be with family members and really just be there as a support and advocate for them. And I feel like as a healthcare professional, like if you don't have that source of purpose, like rooted in a faith, of some sort, it can make your job really, really hard. And so, not that it's not hard, but it lessens or I feel like eases your mind that there is a greater power there. And so, I've seen miracles in my life. My son actually is a miracle. Whenever he had to go through his first bowel surgery, he coded multiple times on the table. And he also, it was the same thing back here in Evansville. There, he was very close to not surviving. And so I've seen God's hand in his life and many other people's lives along the way. And so that's really how I approach things in my practice, in knowing that I've been gifted tools along with compassion and empathy and all these things, but also like using that as a way to frame it for the people that I work with. That I feel like I am. Like I'm an appointed advocate, right, on their behalf, or a mentor, and I partner with the clients that I work with. I really view that as a collaboration and a partnership, versus it being like, you go into your physician and you get handed a script. It's like usually a 7-minute appointment, and you really don't have any like insight into like what's going on. You've just been told to go take this medication or do this thing. So yeah, that's how I view things and how I practice. So
And it's holistic that way too, because it's like mind, body, spirit. Like you really care about the science, which, like that's important, but then also having the faith that there's some kind of energy, there's some kind of higher power working through you to help your clients that you're working with. So,
yes.
yes, I love that. Can you share a little bit about what you do, like the services that you have to offer women? Because I know you work with women and it's mostly hormone therapy. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So, as a functional medicine provider, I really am trained to get to the root cause of pretty much anything, right? Like that's how we're trained. And obviously, like, having more extensive certifications in fertility and cancer and all those things, also the gut is another area of expertise for me. So, I lead with hormones in my practice because a lot of times women will like as we kind of are going down the journey, like even in the fertility realm or beyond into like the perimenopause menopause era, a lot of times women will be like, it's I feel like it's hormonal, right? I feel like that's our kind of fallback that like we'll go to, but like really hormones are the downstream impact of everything upstream. So, to clarify on that, you've got to really get down to the root cause of what's driving those imbalances because hormones don't just misbehave because it's usually goes back to there's nutrient deficiencies, there's toxicities that are going on in the body, there's stress, and like you said, that mind body spirit side of things, that's another key piece. And like so many of us as we journey throughout life, we have traumas and like other things that are unresolved that we haven't worked through, and they become blocks or blockages in the path to optimizing health. So when we start drilling down and looking, and I like to use the analogy of opening up the hood of the car and looking at what's going on inside of the car if a car is not running well, right? It's the same thing as humans. Not that I'm like making us out to be like we're machines, but we want to get down to what is causing this, right? Like if we're in our like perimenopause era, which that's where I am. I'm 46. It's like why am I having this brain fog or why am I having hot flashes in the middle of the night, And so, like you and I had discussed before the call, I really like to make the connection for women that, like, we really need to go back to when we're like young girls starting to go through puberty. Like, we don't openly talk about body systems and the impact. We're kind of just told to power through it or suffer through it. And I was that woman back in the day when, I was in high school, I was an athlete. but I would have debilitating periods where I would be crawling down to the nurse's office to go home. And the question back then was, why was that? But nobody was really asking. I was just handed a script for birth control and told, this is your reality. And it's like, really? Is
Yeah.
that truth, So, but once we're treated that way, like when we're in our younger teens and early adolescence, then a lot of women nowadays are having infertility issues. And the real question is why, right? And
Yeah.
so we go back to there's imbalances going on in the body. And just between you and me, I don't really believe in diagnoses. I believe in imbalances. Like I feel like we put a label on it just so that we can have some sort of validation for it. But what I want women to understand is this goes back to root cause issues. And it's because, our food is heavily sprayed, it has chemicals on them, and we're consuming that. There's antibiotics in our water and other things that aren't being filtered out. So we don't, even though we think we have clean water, in the United States, we still, if you test it, it'll be eye opening. And then, too, just alone, like the stressors of, growing up, going to school and getting a job. I feel like there's so much pressure on women to perform. And like now it's like, you raise a family, you have a job, you have all of these things. And honestly, living abroad over in Australia for 2 years really gave me deep insight into many of the challenges that we have back here and why women are so sick. So, and just to share a little bit on that, Australians really prioritize their self-care. And they are unapologetic about taking some time out in their morning for a morning tea with their friends, their colleagues. And that's what they do with the kids. The kids have a snack break. They call it their morning tea. And the kids get to play and they get to have their snacks. And, I feel like as a society, we are just programmed to perform. And that's where I really like to dismantle this for women and helping them understand that the greatest thing that they can do for themselves is the self-care piece and like just really prioritizing themselves because we know when we're on an airplane, they tell us to put our air mask on first so we can help other people, right? So that's really how I see things and teach. So
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I really feel like the Australia piece, that was like planted as part of your path so that you could have that and like kind of bring that into your practice here in the United States, I feel like
yes.
yeah, that's awesome. So your services that you are offering, you generously donated a contribution to our silent auction. It's a 60 strategy session. Can you explain what that is and how that would benefit the person who gets that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in my practice, we offer complimentary calls for women that are just exploring functional medicine and wanting to understand what a more holistic approach looks like. And so, the 60-minute consultation is really just designed for me to get to know the person and find out like what are their blocks, like what's going on. And inside that session, they are more than welcome to bring any past labs or anything that they would want me to look at so I can give them some deeper insight. And I do feel like that's like a missing piece that, physicians and other providers don't have time to be able to walk through these things with women. And so that's what I really like to do is sit down and just ask deep questions, find out how they're feeling, what's like really burdening them. And then we can look below and see like even labs or just kind of talk about their health history. So when I do work with women, we go back to their birth and we work forward. And I really want to know, and these are things that like many would be like, oh, that's crazy. But like, I want to know, were they a vaginal birth or a C-section birth? Were they breastfed or formula fed? Did they have an early history of antibiotics or other medications that could be impacting their health today? So, what we don't make associations with is things that we did back 50 years ago that have an impact. And two, another piece is that even like our mom and our grandmother's like health histories and things matter too, right?
Mhm.
So we really kind of dive in. And so that session is just for me to get to know them. They can ask me any questions that they want. And like I want them to walk away with like a clear path forward on, okay, these are some tangible things that I can do and start implementing. Or, maybe I want to explore doing deeper work, like with what I do. Or it might be like referring them out to somebody that I feel like in the community that could really like serve their needs. Because I have collaborations with a lot of practitioners and colleagues in Evansville. And so, I feel like from a team approach side of things, like many of us need to come together and work together to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the holistic health. I mean, we all work together to, collaborate for sure. Is there anything else you want to share about your practice and what you do?
Yeah, and I think you had asked me in that initial question, what all I offer in my practice, and I can share a little bit more about that because I didn't elaborate too much on that. But so I work with women in programs. That is how I help them get the results that they desire. And I really aim in my practice for transformation and education, really helping them understand and make connections at a root cause level. So I actually have an entire course built out and program called Hormone Harmony. It's a 4-month program that we run, and I do extensive blood work, hair tissue mineral analysis inside of that. And I help women come up with a comprehensive, holistic plan that serves them. I also do a lot of other extensive testing in my practice to get to root cause things. And that's usually more in a 1-to-1 program. So I offer 3 month, 6 month, and 12-month programs. And so I am trained in genetics, nutrigenomics. So a lot of times I'll pull that in because it is cutting edge science that we can use to further tailor and personalize at a deep, deep level. And so I really love that aspect of that. Also, like a lot of times, I really frame things around so like the microbiome in the gut is the epicenter of everything. And a lot of times women don't make associations with health issues in gut if it's not specifically gut things that they're dealing with. But doing a deeper dive into the microbiome can give us insight into why they have arthritis issues or maybe why they have neurological things going on like restless leg. It can explain a lot of things with like our perimenopause women with hot flashes and night sweats and those kinds of things. So I pull in a lot of different testing based upon their unique needs to really tailor their program for them.
Thank you. Yes, and I mean, this is so needed. It's so needed for women's health because there's not a lot of information and knowledge, it's still very cutting edge and thank you for doing the work that you do because this is so necessary. It's so
Yes,
Where
yes.
can we find you online? I know you have a podcast and a Substack and a website. Where can people can find you?
Yes, for sure. So my website is mandypatterson.com, Mandy, and then Patterson with double T. We have an extensive blog section on my website. We have, I think, over 150 blogs I've written over the years on specific topics and areas of interest for women. Like you said, I run the Gutsy Hormone and Fertility podcast. We just have one season out there. It actually had to take a little bit of a break because my oldest ended up with some significant complications last year and had to have 2 more bowel surgeries here in Evansville. So I had to take a little time off because I had to take care of him. But we are going to be relaunching that second and that third season coming up. So, and then like you and I discussed, I'm on Substack under Dr. Mandy Patterson. I do a lot of writing on there, and it's a mix, right? I want people to understand who I am as a person, but I also want to equip them with information that could really change their lives and be even life-saving for them. So we will be putting out more information on recipes and dietary considerations and protocols and all of those things just to really educate and inspire women. So,
All right. Well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. And I guess I should say too, I didn't say this, but we are like all over. I'm on Pinterest. They can find me there. We have lots of great info that tie back to my blog, my podcast, recipes. We're out on Facebook, and it's Mandy Patterson, functional medicine practitioner. We also have a private Facebook group on there as well, um, that women can come into. And then also, I'm on Instagram, Dr. Mandy Patterson, there as well. So we're like kind of all over. So,
You to find, which is
yes,
good.
yes, yes,
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me today and for sharing your work and your passion with us. Like I said, it's so necessary. We need this. And this is your first year with the Evansville Holistic Expo. So we're really happy to have you with us. Thank you.
yes.
This year's expo is October 17th from 11 to 5 p.m. at the Old National Events Plaza. So make sure you stop by Dr. Mandy Patterson's booth and come say hi. Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks, Jennifer.